You're listening to
the Beer O'Clock,
the Beer O'Clock Show.
You're listening to the Beer O'Clock Show.
It's Beer O'Clock and this is the Beer O'Clock Show. My name is Mark and joining me, still a bit green and a bit croaky after his trip to the Emerald Isle, it's my beer buddy Steve. Hello Steve.
Hi Mark, how are you doing?
I'm alright mate, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Very good. Also joining us from way up north, by which I mean somewhere at the end of the Northern Line, is our old buddy, beer blogger and bearded beauty from brewgeekery.com is Pete McCary. Hello Pete.
Hello, what an introduction.
It was better than mine this week, that was.
Much deserving. How are you doing, Pete?
Yeah, I'm very well, although a little bit tired. I was out yesterday, I went to the Duke's Head in Highgate, best pub in North London, and had quite a few pints of Gamma Ray, so that had an impact upon the quality of my sleep. So I'm a little bit tired today, and looking forward to getting stuck into some beer.
Poor little man. This week we sample a collaboration between a record label and a brewery with Island Records and Two Tribes Session IPA. But before we get to that, apart from Gamma Ray, Pete, what have you been drinking, mate?
I have been drinking quite a lot, actually. I drank a beer which is actually brewed with leftover bread called Toast Ale. It's an initiative that's been set up to tackle the food waste crisis by a charity called Feedback, and it's in collaboration with Hackney Brewery. So surplus bread, unwanted bread is added into the mash along with the grain, and the resulting beer was not too bad. Not normally the kind of beer I would choose, but I had it with some toast that I made myself, baked some bread, and it was nice. And there was also an impromptu Cloudwater tap takeover at the Jolly Butchers in Stoke Newington last Wednesday, so I popped along and tried a few of the winter range beers. So I've done well, I've had a good week. Very
good. In complete contrast, I've had a very slow week.
Shock.
I did have one beer though, which was, we got a few cans from Heavy Industry before Christmas actually, and the one I had this week was Pigeon Toed Orange Peel Halfwit, which is like a Hefeweizen beer. It was alright, not enough German yeasty notes in it for me. It was just a bit blood orangey, and that was it, really, which is disappointing. But Steve, you had a bit of a weekend.
I did have a little bit of a weekend of it. I went over to Ireland to the All Tech Beer and Food Festival, which is kind of a bit of a showcase of Irish beer and what's going on. And as you can imagine, I pretty much drank all of the Irish beer. Which was quite an effort on my part, but probably trying to think of some standouts. There was an oatmeal coffee stout from White Hag Brewery that was actually being poured through a coffee bean Randall as well, so it was pretty much like a pint of espresso going into your mouth, which was incredible, and it was incredible flavours, but it did actually destroy my palate for about 2 hours, and I couldn't taste anything but coffee. The other standout one was from Rye River, which was the beer that actually won the Dublin Cup, which was the obviously like the best beer of the festival. So, and this was McGargo's Francis Big Banging IPA, which from the title, as you can imagine, exactly what it would taste like, and why it appealed to me so much. So that was an incredible weekend, and I was really well looked after by our friends Mr. and Mrs. Beer Snob, who sorted us out with passes for the event. And I have to say as well, massive thank you to the guys from the All Tech Media team who really looked after us. And made sure that all our needs were catered for. And we've got an interview coming up in a couple of weeks with one of the guys from All Tech that talks about the festival and about the reasoning behind it. But ahead of that, while I was there, I also managed to record this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, for the
0 people watching live today and the millions listening at home, the Beer O'Clock Show proudly presents the undisputed international #1 fan contest. In the blue corner, the towering Geordie, the North East powerhouse, and the reigning #1 fan, Miles Lambert. In the Irish corner, or the red corner, is the Irish image machine and king of the prizeless prize, son of a gun. So let's have a fair fight, guys. 7 questions. First of 4 takes it. Undisputed #1 fan title. Question 1. Which show do both Mark and I quote as being our favourite ever show?
Son of a gun. Unhuman Cannibal.
Okay, 1 point to son of a gun. Takes an early lead. Question 2. Which beer did we feature on show 100?
Son of a gun.
Oh, that was Magic Rock, Bearded Lady.
Wrong.
Wrong.
Son of a
Wrong.
Beer Geek Daydream.
Oh, by which British brewery?
McKellar, Siren,
No, Siren.
Collaboration.
McKellar, Siren. Thanks, Miles.
That
1.5.
I'll give you a half point for almost getting it, and I'll give you a half point as well. So we're 1.5 to half point at the moment. Okay, question 3. Which beer did I say smelt like a wet dog and made me thirsty?
Oh,
Jesus.
oh, I know this as well.
Oh my God.
I know this.
Okay.
You're #1 fan. You should know.
In 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3,
Oh,
2.
Son of a gun. Something by Green King.
no.
Absolutely not. No. 1. Okay, the answer was Bear Hug White IPA.
Oh.
Question 4. Who first coined the phrase making the Monday commute bearable since 2012?
Miles. That was Hopsy and Rob Derbyshire.
That was indeed. That's 1.5 each at this point. Question 5. What is Mark's favourite beer of all time?
Miles. Badger, Golden Glory.
No.
Oh, what?
Chocolate Orange Stout by somebody.
No. One more chance each.
Sam Smith's.
No.
No, I give up.
Magic Rock's Salty Kiss. Yeah. No. We're still on 1.5 each as we go into question 6. What is the greatest prizeless prize shot ever?
Son of a gun. It's wild beer. Is it wild beer? Is that what they're called? On a mountaintop. It's on a mountain.
That's it. That is absolutely it. It doesn't matter who is by. That was the shot. That's a point for you. That's 2.5. Plays 1.5. We've got 1 question left. And a tiebreaker if we need it. So, who was our first ever guest?
Yes, Miles. Nate.
A little bit more than that.
Is this her name?
Nate.
Nate Dogg.
Yes, Nate Dogg.
No!
2.5 each. Okay, so we're going to the tiebreaker to settle this. Whoever gets this takes the prize of the international ultimate #1 fan. Okay, name one of the 2 previous #1 fans.
Yes, Miles. And Oh Duty.
No,
He's done them both. It's a TKO. Miles takes it, and he remains the undisputed international
Yes! Yes!
1 fan.
Oh, there we go. What a bit of nonsense that is.
Yes, so now we have an undisputed #1 fan, and nobody can question that.
Right, Steve, after all that, have you got a bit of news for us?
Of course there's news, mate.
Right, here's your pips. Beep, 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 beep.
Okay, so continuing with the Irish theme. I'm really sorry. Continuing with the Irish theme, at the Alltech Festival, there was a new Guinness World Record set for the world's largest beer tasting, which happened on the Friday night. And Ireland now hold the record with 729 people simultaneously tasting 3 beers. The previous record was held in Mexico with 714 participants. So congratulations to the guys for taking a new Guinness Beer World Record, or a Guinness World Record about beer. Choose whichever one you prefer. Event news. Camden Town have got an event coming up called Beer at Beach. where they've working with a company called Beach London. They've commissioned 14 artists to illustrate each stage of the beer making process. The work will be shown at the Beach's gallery space in Shoreditch, together with an interactive final drinking stage where visitors will get to try the beer and can contribute their own artwork as well. Now that's running from the 19th to the 28th of February. If you want more details about that, CamdenTownBrewery.com. More event news. The Norwich City of Ale will be back starting on the 26th of May. It's a unique event and remains one of the best citywide celebrations of ale in the UK. It's one of the events that a lot of the other beer weeks and things like that have followed. There are over 40 pubs taking part in it, and also over 40 breweries that are getting involved in brewing various beers for it as well. More information on that, cityofale.org.uk. And finally, some new beer news. Hogsback, who were featured on the show before, are brewing a beer made with the first Farnham white vine hop in more than 100 years. So this is a hop that has been regrown again specifically by the guys at Hogsback Brewery to use in a beer. It's 4% golden bitter, brewed with the hops that were harvested back in September last year. And it's now going to be available pouring in pubs that normally serve the Hogsback brew. For more information on that, check out Hogsback website. And that's the end of the news this week.
Very good. Right, so as I said at the top of the show, we've got a collab beer this week from Island Records and Two Tribes. It is their Session IPA. We have an interview at the end of the show with Glenn Cooper from Island Records and Justin Dayton from Two Tribes. But before we get to that, we have to actually drink the bloody thing. So here we are. 4.5% ABV. A laid-back session strength IPA, it says on the back of the tin. Let's get into it, guys.
And it is indeed. It pours out quite a lovely sort of amber colour. Nice thick head on it. Easily a finger's worth of head. Nice white, thick and creamy. Light, juicy tropical flavours coming off of it. Pretty much ticking all the boxes for an IPA for me.
Yeah, it smells, excuse me, it smells very, very fruity, very tropical. I think I can smell some mango, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say it's not the typical big piney notes on it. It's nice to get some of that mango in.
I don't know if you've had the Lervig Lucky Jack beer. That's where it reminds me of, the smell of it.
Okay. Well, yeah, it looks lovely and nice carbonation coming from that. Nice kind of dark straw colour. Like Steve said, it's a finger's worth of head. But shall we get into the tasting of it, chaps?
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Oh,
It's nice, yeah.
immediately big bitterness.
Yeah,
That's quite juicy, isn't it?
it's juicy, but in a light kind of way. You know, like we said, with last week's beer, it had a slight syrupiness to it, a slight thickness on it. Obviously, that came with the much higher ABV than this has. This is light in every way. The flavours are light. The feel of it in the mouth is light. It's not thick or overpowering, and there is a long bitter finish on there as well. And it's a lasting bitter finish too.
Yeah, it's lasting. It's quite dry as well, dry bitter finish. Yeah, as you see, it's not oily at all in the body. It's quite a nice mouthfeel actually. It's a thirst quencher and it's going down very well. I got two, by
Absolutely.
the way. I thought if I'm going to travel across London to pick up this beer, I'm not picking up one. So yeah, I won't hesitate to down this one. Bear with me.
Yeah, the dryness isn't lingering, which is quite nice for me. But as you're drinking it, for me, it's like instead of just notes of juiciness, it's like that's the main bit of it coming across my palate is that sweetness and the nice juice.
I'm not.
Big bitterness as well.
I'm not getting a lot of sweetness off of it. I've got to say, I'm mainly getting the bitterness and the light juicy flavours off of it. But it's very well balanced. Everything about it balances out really well. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the background to this beer tonight because that's all in the interview at the end with the guys. So make sure you do hang around for that. I mean, tonight we'll just be focusing on what this beer tastes like. I think, and for me, as folks can probably tell, I'm struggling with the voice a little bit this week, but this is a kind of almost the perfect tonic for me this evening.
Steve, you sound quite sexy actually with your husky voice.
Why, thank you.
You should, you should become ill more often, I think.
I've got to say, I'm not looking for sympathy or anything because this isn't a cold. It's completely self-inflicted from the weekend.
Hashtag poor Steve.
Yeah. See if we can get more people using that than they did for you, mate, when you were genuinely poorly.
So, Pete, how's the blogging going, right? Because you're blogging at Brew Geekery.
Yeah.
When we last had you on, you were doing the whole cinemas that serve beer thing.
Yeah, well, I realised quite quickly that had a limited shelf life. So the concept was finding cinemas in London that sold decent beer, and there aren't that many. So once I'd written about the ones that did sell good beer, I didn't really have anywhere to go. So I decided just to give myself a bit more freedom. My wife Gemma, her friend, does web design. She offered to build me a website for free, basically. So I took her up on it and decided, as I say, to give myself more freedom and just it's a London-centric beer blog. So some of the posts are about London pubs, events, breweries, but also I blog about. I do opinion pieces or, blog about any beery issues that are occurring, so I have quite a lot of freedom basically, and, just if something's on my mind and I can't express myself within the character limit of Twitter, then I just write it and put it on the blog. So yeah, it's going well, it's enjoyable, I'm enjoying it.
And let's be honest, mate, it's one of those opinion pieces that you wrote that have actually brought us to invite you on tonight's show, because you've kind of provided us with the subject matter for this week's hot topic, which almost broke Twitter today for a while. I think there were so many people getting involved in it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you must have gone online or something, Steve, and there was God knows how many notifications you had, but yeah, it was dominating my Twitter timeline for most of the day. I didn't get much work done trying to keep up with it. No change there, really. But but yeah, it's there's quite a broad range of opinions involved as well with this topic, and I think it is a very personal, subjective thing. You take a moral standpoint, I guess. I have one particular one. Other people have different views on it. I guess there's no right and wrong. I tweeted last night when you mentioned it on Twitter that this topic was coming up. I kind of, a drunken, daft tweet about my rule of thumb is really not to be a fanny when it comes to feedback, and that's not just for beer, that's in general. I don't know, maybe I should take my own advice at times, but
let's not hype it up anymore. Let's jump straight into this week's hot topic, and we can come back to the beer after, I think. So this week's hot topic was, and I think part of this was it proved how difficult it is to get your message across in 140 characters, because I think a lot of the comments that were being made were questioning what the question was that was actually being asked. In a nutshell, I was asking, how do you publicly provide feedback to a brewery? So whether that's good or bad feedback. Now, a lot of people did have a lot to say about it, but I'm just gonna pull out a few of the initial comments. Then we'll have a look at the results, and then the three of us will have a bit of a chat about this tonight. So first person to respond was Miles Lambert, our number one fan. I literally think the guy got off of the plane home from Ireland and started tweeting because he was the first person to respond. And he was just echoing what I've just said there. Some feedback needs more than 140 characters. Use the most appropriate format for what you want to say. David Martin then jumped in and said all feedback is acceptable so long as it's A, constructive, or B, well meant. Justin Mason had a couple of comments. Always DM the brewery. It avoids a lot of unnecessary conflict if it's bad. If you then get a rude reply, warn first to give them a chance, but then by all means blog about it or call them out. But good public relations are the key. And that's an important thing, because a lot of breweries, I think, do suffer from not doing public relations particularly well on Twitter. Max Bobfield has had some great convos after Untapped, after checking a beer in Untapped about a beer, whether it be via the app or via Twitter. Phil Hardy said it's a tricky one, surely depends on whether it's positive or negative influences. And then Beer Finder, if you don't like a beer, tell everyone. If you like a beer, tell everyone. If you don't like a beer, tell the brewer. So those were just some of the bits of feedback. As always, we had a poll on this. People had 4 options. The first option was to tweet the brewery, making sure you include them in the tweet, to DM the brewery directly, to subtweet, or to email them or contact them in some direct method. The overwhelming public opinion this week was 44% said tweet, but make sure you include the brewery in the tweet. So that was the view, and then this whole thing exploded about doing it right, doing it wrong. Are people doing it simply to try and get free beer? Then a whole conversation started about beer blaggers, and it all went a bit nuts from there. So, Pete, this was your hot topic. What's your views on this before I ask Mark for his opinions?
Well, I wrote a blog post about the subject, prompted by tweets that I'd seen on Twitter, which were slating a beer, slating a brewery, and it wasn't an issue of taste. It was actually a critique of the brewer's ability, without including the Twitter handle. I just think that's not very classy. I think my blog post was relating to negative feedback. So positive feedback, I don't think it matters how you give it. I mean, it's positive, so, the brewer's going to be happy however they hear about it. They'd probably prefer you to publicly praise them. Negative feedback, I think it's different. And it depends on whether or not you think a brewery is allowed to make mistakes, especially a young, new brewery. I'm of the opinion that they are. We live in exciting times when we have so many breweries. Not everyone, in my opinion, is going to get it right from the get-go. Not everyone can afford to buy the best equipment up front, hire the best brewers and whatnot, and I don't think brewing should be elitist, I think we need to champion people that have jacked in their jobs, put all their savings and whatnot into setting up, a brewery and following their dreams. So, in my case, there was an occasion at London Brewers Market where I bought 4 beers from the same brewery, the same beer, opened them, they were all flat, poured them all down the sink, which is not something I do lightly, to be honest. So I felt the best thing to do was just to give them a heads up, because I thought, it's a brewery that I like. I've had a beer before, I've enjoyed it. Give them a heads up, let them know. They replied, apologised, explained that they were having issues, technical issues, offered to send me some beers. I refused because that wasn't the point. And then I left it up to them to address the issue, and I felt that was the appropriate way to deal with it. I could have gone on Twitter and named them, but not put their Twitter handle in, and then create, just putting out negative vibes out there, really. Maybe people jump on that bandwagon, and these guys are oblivious to it, That's my personal standpoint that I take. I realise that people have different views. People think, well, treat it like any other product. If you get a substandard product, you spent your money, you're entitled to say what you want, and I have a bit of sympathy with that view, but I just think, good things are happening in beer, and there's enough negativity I don't personally want to contribute to it. So that's how I dealt with that. And there was another occasion where I put a picture of a beer on Instagram, and it was a bit lively, shall we say. It was very highly carbonated, and the brewery got in touch saying, yeah, apologies, we've had issues, I'll send you another one. And I replied to say that don't bother. It's not the point. It didn't actually bother me that much, apart from making a mess of my kitchen floor. But that aside, it's still a decent tasting beer. So that's my personal approach. And also, you need to make this distinction, I feel, between a quality control issue, such as flat beers or oxidized beers or whatnot, and just a matter of personal taste, and you can't confuse the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I ask Mark on his opinions, I just want to say that there's a link to the blog post that you wrote in tonight's show notes if people want to click through and have a read. Equally, the second link that's in there is a link to what I would say is the perfect complementary piece, which was written by Mark Johnson. The two blog posts together kind of are addressing the same sorts of issues. So it's worth having a read of both of those because it does give a little bit more context to the discussion that we're having here tonight. Mark, what about yourself, mate? Do you have any strong views either way on this one?
Strong views? I very rarely have strong views, Stephen. I think basically it comes down to don't be a prick. Like Pete was saying earlier, don't be a fanny. If you don't like a beer, if it's just not to your taste, then tweet about it. You paid for it, you may as well. But if something's actually wrong with it, have a word with the brewer. Because if you're feeling passionate enough that you want to feed back on something at that level, on something that obviously has something wrong with it, then go to the brewer instead. Don't be a fanny about it. But at the end of the day, it's your Twitter. You can do whatever you want. I don't give a fuck.
It is, but publicly naming and shaming, I think, is poor form. Personally, and so I'm jumping in my opinion here, and I think I'm probably going to talk about maybe the same posts that Pete referred to, where recently I've seen pictures of a brewery's beer on my timeline. Clearly the bottle of the beer, so that you can see the brewery's name, you can see what beer it is, and then the people that have posted that beer haven't done nothing but criticise it, but at the same time they've not bothered tagging the brewery into that. Now that's just rude in my opinion. If you're going to take to Twitter to criticise somebody's work, regardless of whether your opinion is that that's good or bad, it's poor form to shame them without giving them an opportunity to sort of like publicly reply to that. And I think that's where I got so passionate about this one and I think Pete and I had a bit of an exchange before we said, look, let's put this on the show and let's talk about it, because I think there are better ways of doing it. Like Pete said, if it's complimentary feedback, breweries are always going to enjoy that. But if it's constructive or negative, you've got to go about it in the right way, and you've got to give them their right to reply as well. And I think, just to echo what the pair of you have said, and to use a different word, just don't be a dick about it. There are enough people out there that are doing it simply to try and blag free beer. But if you're really passionate about enjoying your beer and you want to help make things better, then get the brewery involved in those discussions.
Indeed.
Agreed.
Right, on that note,
that was quite a passionate one this week, wasn't it? That
I think we basically just you've shown a way forward, basically, so that should be the end of the debate, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely, our word is final on everything.
This beer then, lovely dry finish on it. I'm still getting that kind of mango-y sweetness right there in the middle of it. It's really nice to have a clean... I'm tasting it as being a sweetness, but a clean sweetness, fruitiness in the middle there, surrounded by this lovely dry bitterness kind of hanging at the back. Pete?
I could possibly do with more sweetness, I think, to round it a bit more. I like bitter hops, but I think it's virgin on overwhelming. Having said that, I'm on my second, so it can't be that bad.
Good effort. Yeah, I'm just going to echo what you guys have said. There's a dry, lasting bitter finish. I'm not getting a lot of the sweetness. I'm getting more of the juicy flavours. Maybe for my tastes, it could do being just a tad thicker on the mouth feel, but then it is a session IPA. So you know, it's one that I suppose after you've had 2 or 3, you don't want that thickness in your mouth. You want to be able to drink them at and at 4.5%, you could quite possibly drink this all day long without even really feeling it. But drink responsibly, folks.
Yeah, I think if the maltness, like if they had more body to it, coupled with like how bitter it is, I think you'd end up getting quite full from it. Whereas how it is now, I think you could drink it as a session beer for a little bit longer. Do you get what I mean?
Yes,
yeah. I know what you're saying, and in terms of session IPAs, I mean that as a beer descriptor or a style of beers slightly ambiguous anyway, but in terms of beers that I've had that call themselves session IPAs, this is probably one of the better ones actually, one of the more flavourful ones, enjoyable ones. You definitely could session it. Maybe if they had this on it, the Duke's Head, I would be feeling less delicate today because Gamma Ray is not a session beer, no matter how hard I try to convince myself.
That's like me trying to convince myself that Cannonball is the perfect session beer. It's just never going to happen.
Well, it is the way you drink it, mate. Come on.
Yeah, fair point. Just do want to say, in summing up on this beer, we're really grateful to Don and Charlie from Boutique Bar Brands who first got in touch with us about featuring the beer on the show. They in turn put us in touch with the guys from Island Records and Two Tribes, and obviously we got given these beers. We have enjoyed them. They are available to buy from Ours by Mail, and if you are buying them from there, make sure you use our discount.
Indeedy. Right, Steve, do we have an Instagram of the week, mate?
Well, we have, mate. It was a fairly uninspiring Instagram feed that I was looking at this week. Not saying that I'm not grateful for all the pictures that are going up, but it was difficult to choose a winner. I can't talk for too much longer. Big box of nothing. Prize this week going to Fantastic Film, who went with us on our Belgian theme, posted a great picture of a Belgian beer looking really good in the glass. Everything about the picture was crisp and clear and really colourful. So congratulations, Fantastic Film, for winning this week's great big box of nothing. If you want to have a go at winning next week's prize, try and be a little bit imaginative with your pictures. Put them on Instagram, use the hashtag Cheers Guys, and maybe I'll be a little bit more grateful for the effort that you put into supporting the show next week.
Oh, for you. Next week we are back to Belgium with the Gaulois and Brie from the Beautiful Beers Season 9 Belgian box, which you can get from Beautiful Beers, of course. Don't forget to use the discount code with them. And also a big thanks to Ales by Mail, Beer Merchants, and Ebria, who all now offer a 10% discount to Beer O'Clock Show listeners. Check out our Season 9 beer list on our website for the discount codes and links. Pete, your blog is at brewgeekery.com, am I correct?
You are bang on.
Very good. And you are on Twitter at?
PG McCary.
Very good. We're on Twitter at Beer O'Clock Show. The website is beeroclockshow.co.uk. We're on Instagram at Beer O'Clock Show. Steve is on Untapped at Beer Show Steve. I'm on Untapped at Beer Show Mark, and I'm on Twitter at Beer Show Mark. Don't forget to hang around for the end of the show with an interview with Glenn Cooper from Island Records and Justin Dayton from Two Tribes. Apologies for the sound at the very beginning. Glenn was just getting out of a cab, so it's a little bit windy, but we get through it pretty soon. Don't worry about that. Right, until next week, Stevie.
It's been the highlight of my week.
And mine. Pete, thanks again for joining us. It's always a pleasure to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Until next week. Bye-bye.
It's Beer O'Clock, and we're joined by Glenn from Island Records and Justin from Two Tribes Brewery to talk about this week's featured beer, which is the Island Records Session IPA. Guys, welcome to the Beer O'Clock show.
Hiya. Hi.
First of all, let's start off. Can you give us a little bit of background about the beer? So how did it come about?
It's Glenn here. So I'm a lover of craft beer, and I was senior marketing director at Island Records, and I was on the train with a good friend Robin, who was a kind of craft brewer down in Brighton, just doing his own thing, and I mentioned the idea about creating an island beer, just in passing on the train, and wondered if it was something he'd like to do. and he was very excited about it. I mentioned it at work, and the guys thought it was a great idea, and that was literally the origins of it.
Okay, so just from a discussion on a train. So originally you mentioned that you was with Robin. Now Robin's from Soundwave Brewery, isn't he?
That's correct, yeah.
So it was his idea, it was his recipe that he came up with for the original beer, but it's now being commercially brewed by Justin at Two Tribes. So what was the thinking behind the beer kind of transferring from one person to another, and what was the reasoning behind going with a session IPA?
Well, basically, that was kind of the theme of the beer that Robin originally created, and Robin was just as much involved in scaling it up to more of a commercial brew. So it was a sort of a collective thing between us. We just needed to take Robin's original kind of homebrew and scale it so that it would be viable as a commercial beer. Obviously, most people know about limitations with hops and stuff like that, so we just kind of needed to look at it so it was more viable. So the whole session IPA wanted to be obviously very drinkable, but have that real tropical feel to it, which would capture the essence of Island Records.
Okay, and this was this is the second batch of it. Am I right in saying that there was a test batch released late last year?
Yeah, that's right. We did a test batch just because it was we wanted to get it out in the market and see to sort of some key people and get some feedback. It's been really well received, so we're now just released the second batch, which is again being received really well. This has got the Shazam on the can as well, which is great.
And was there much tweaking between the recipes, or has the recipe stayed true to the original?
There was quite a bit of tweaking actually, very much to do with the hops. The original hops were not really viable for us to scale up, so we looked at other options, and it was very much kind of looking at getting hops in there that we could get hold of easier than the first batch of hops.
Okay, and you just mentioned there that the Shazam's on the can now as well. The music theme is really strong throughout the development and the background of this beer. I know that was kind of Robin's original intention with it. Justin, you've been quite involved in the music business as well. And then obviously Island Records have got involved with the branding. So for you guys, how important is that focus of music and the beer together?
Glenn?
I'll step in here. Cheers, Justin. For me, it was integral in terms of making the beer. I mean, people, generally would say, well, why are Island Records making a beer? And for us, it was, to me, there's a real crossover in the craft beer where people are passionate about their beer and what they drink, and people who are passionate about their music. So I wanted to make sure that if we were going to make the beer, that there was a real strong crossover with music. And what we did, the tagline for the beer, best served with music, we talked long and hard about that, and something that kind of portrayed that message. And we decided that we were going to create 3 playlists on Spotify, because we wanted to try and create different playlists for different moods. So if you sat back and on your own, relaxing after a long hard day, there's a nice playlist called As the Sun Hits the Water, which is all it's kind of acoustic, folk and reggae. All drawn from the Island catalogue. And then we had a party playlist, Slave to the Rhythm. And then there's one that's more an eclectic kind of 6 music style playlist with great tracks from the heritage and our new artists. So we just thought we'd have those mood-based playlists. And then I was talking to my contacts at Shazam about the beer, and they just launched their visual Shazam technology. So I asked them if it's something they'd want to do and be involved in, and they absolutely loved it. So we created the world's first Shazamable beer can.
Brilliant. And the information about the playlist is also on the can as well. So and it's also on the website, so people can find out a little bit more about that. Glenn, you did kind of preempt me with two of my questions there, which was why did Island Records decide they wanted to put their name to a beer, which I think you've covered, and obviously the best served with music theme. What's next? Is this going to be the only release for in the Island Records beer catalogue, or are you looking at taking it a little bit further and maybe doing a few core beers?
Over to you, Justin.
Well, we've actually just brewed one.
Okay.
Robin has come up with a new recipe which I've just done a test brew of, which is a Jamaican rum porter. So yes, that's in tank at the moment. Hopefully will be released at Craft Beer Rising at the end of the month, so it'll be available there.
Okay, great news. So we'll take that as a bit of an exclusive for the Beer O'Clock show. I think you heard it here first, folks. Okay, so listen, guys, I appreciate you've given up your time this evening to chat to us about the beer. Where can people find out more about the beer and everything that's going on around it? And also, Justin, from your point of view, where can people find out a little bit more about Two Tribes Brewery as well?
Well, obviously, Two Tribes, we're associated with this Island Records beer, but we are doing lots of other beers, collaborating with other people, and just trying to look at more interesting ventures of just kind of getting beers out there and attracting different creative industries. So we're kind of out there. We're in quite a few sites in London, and we do an awful lot in Brighton as well. So just check us out on twotribestaste.com, and you should get your updates there.
Okay, and Glenn, the website because the beer's got its own website, it's got its own Twitter feed. This is a beer with its own real personality, isn't it?
Indeed. Yeah, it's the website is irsipa.com. Thought we'd make it nice and easy, and we update while we're growing the brand and getting the beer out there in the right places at the right time. We update the list of stockists on the site every week, so we try and keep people up to speed with where the beer is available. As you said, and at IRS IPA is the Twitter handle, which I pretty much look after myself with help from the guys, which I thoroughly enjoy doing. My learning about the craft beer world as well, it's absolutely fascinating. I love it. And of course, we're going to be down at Craft Beer Rising, so we'll be there with Justin pulling pints on the day. So hopefully, a few people will get to come and see us down there.
Okay, great stuff. Well, listen, once again, guys, thanks very much for giving up your time, and thanks also for getting the beers to us as well. We do appreciate that. We've really enjoyed doing them on tonight's show, and I hope the future brews go well.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us on.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, bye.